the item and his.
Or something different. Where then, but yeah, I would think of no emotion has to be.
Okay. Thank you.
Recording.
I just realized, I'm like, because normally it's a odd number.
Yeah.
Whenever you're ready.
Hey, this is a regular meeting of the Hollister County Commission on Thursday, April 24th, 2025. The meeting is now called to order. The time is 6 p.m. Dot. Staff, please call the roll.
Commissioner Carla Torres Delano.
Here.
Commissioner Damien Flores.
Here.
Commissioner Jaime Izuni.
Here.
Chair Stephen Balon.
Present. Commissioner Mizuni, can we please hear us in the play? I would like to allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're gonna move on to item 4. This is the time for anyone in the audience to speak on any item not on the agenda during the subject matter of the jurisdiction of the commission. Speaker cards are available in the lobby and are to be completed and given to staff before speaking. When staff calls your name, please come to the podium, state your name, city for the record, and speak to the commission. If you are joining us via Zoom, please click on the bottom of the screen to raise your hand. If you are joining us via Zoom using a cell phone, please press number 9. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes with a maximum of 30 minutes per subject. Please note that state law prohibits the commission from discussing or taking action on any items not on the agenda. Staff, do you have any public comments?
No public comments.
Okay, with no public comments, we'll move on to consent items. We get approval for February 27th and March 13th meeting minutes. Do we have any questions from the commission? Hearing none, staff, do we have any public comments regarding the minutes?
No public comments.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for accepting the minutes.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minute.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Second. There is a motion in a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. We move on to item number 6, 6.1. We have a staff report.
Good evening.
One second.
My name is Brandon Gonzalez. I am presenting site architectural review 2024-2. The applicant is Cradle Investment. And the address is 695. The site is an Amazon distribution center. The application is solely for a monument site to be located on a corner of the already entitled, facility. The monument sign will be, double-sided and illuminated. It will be, more of a directional informational sign than anything else. It will, state that it will identify the Amazon Fulfillment Center. It will, direct people to the visitors, the visitor section and trucks, as well as providing the address. It has setbacks of 3 feet 6 inches on one side and 30 inches on the other from the curb. It will be two-sided, facing east and west. The area highlighted by the blue, mark indicates specifically where it will be, and it just references the setback that I previously mentioned.
Okay.
And there are, specific dimensions for the monument sign and the colors that, they're proposing as well. Again, the elevation, I'm just showing what it will, how it will look on both sides, the east and the west side. The proposed monument sign meets, the requirements established in municipal code. A monument sign has to be presented to the planning commission for your consideration. It's not asking for anything, out of the ordinary. It's 50 square feet. It's up to 6 feet tall. And it's pretty small significance to the size of the warehouse. It also complies with, the airport lines condition. It was reviewed by them as well, and we, deemed it consistent with, airport lines compatibility. And it's also exempt from SECA, pursuant to section 15302 existing facilities. The planning commission has, several options to consider. The first one would be to adopt a resolution approving SAA 2024-2. Subject to the findings and conditions contained in the draft, attachment, which is staff's recommendation. Option number 2, which is a resolution approving SAA 2024-2, with findings or conditions of approval modified by the planning commission. Option number 3, to deny the proposed project, or option number 4, to continue the hearing and direct staff to provide additional information or clarification. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Do you have any questions from the commission?
It's just to understand that these are the only signs that, just this east and west.
There are wall signs, those do not require to be presented to the planning commission, but any monument sign has to come before you.
Got it, okay. And this is the facing, if you're looking at the building from, is it something parallel?
Yeah, let me change that to that. It's on Ernie Drive, and yeah, I'm sorry, Martha, right?
I'm at the airport.
Yes, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on the name of
I'm
the
assuming
street.
it's coming, you'll be able to see because it's a monument center.
Yeah, it's not very big, and it's under 6 feet tall, but you would be able to see it for the trucks to be able to rent, yeah,
Right, that's what I think visually is.
Yes. Yes.
For the trucks and whoever's delivering.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
How is it illuminated? Is the lights on the sign, or is the light on the ground?
It's on the sign, yeah,
So basically, the blue would be illuminated.
correct.
I don't know if this is related, but I'm just curious because is that where the roundabout? There's a roundabout that like feeds into that Amazon?
It is on the corner of the building, the roundabout would be on the side.
But that's that road that goes straight to that,
Right,
right?
on to that.
Is there a plan to put a sign near there at all?
Not by this company, yeah,
I was just curious.
Is there any further questions? No? Okay, I'll now open up, the public hearing at 6:09.
Don't have what comments on one.
Okay, we'll now close public hearing at 6:09. And, move on to, entertain a motion.
Can you see the,
Sorry, I'm really struggling tonight with the technology.
I think I have a motion to, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving S and A 24-2.
I second that. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 6.2, Appeal 25-1 for 13B1 Carriage Road Fence Extension Appeal. Good evening. My name is Marco Martinez, one of the engineers for the city's engineering department. And the item before you tonight is Appeal 2025-1. Submitted by Alan Mellon. It's regarding the fence extension appeal at 13 William Cambridge Road. So the appeal was submitted by Alan Mellon, and the project location is 1381 Carriage Road, within track 341 of the Marabella Creek subdivision. On September 25, 2024, the City of Hollister's Code Enforcement Department identified a violation, the city ordinance 1716-050 for the property 1381 Carriage Road. Code enforcement followed up with with the city's engineering division and identified no fence extension permits for at the school. Under code enforcement compliance order 24-2522, the applicant was instructed to submit a fence extension application as a corrective action on or before 2024 to rectify the unpermitted fence extension. On October 17, 2024, the property owner, Alan Mellon, submitted a fence extension application package to the engineering division. The application package requested for the realization of the non-conforming fence as shown in figure 3 of the staff report.
Try pointing it this way. Okay, just tell me when and I'll move on.
As shown by the slides, the fence is less than a foot away from the back of the wall. On October 28, 2024, the city's engineering division reiterated to the property owner that the extended fence was in violation of the municipal code. And the engineering decision was based on section 1716-050. Where fence extension must give to the required setbacks for medium density residential performance overlay, otherwise classified as the R3 zoning district. The required setback for the fence fronting North Gonzalez Drive is 10 feet, and it's 15 feet along the frontage of the house, which is a Carriage Road. As shown in figure 4 of the staff report, which is also on this slide, clearly the fence is really to the back of the wall. The applicant was also informed they will need to revise the fence extension application to push back the unpermitted fence outside of 10-foot public utility. So the home was actually built in 2021 and had a side yard fence that was abutted to the southwest corner of the home. as shown by their, plot plan. And this slide, itself shows, the, uh, the current fence extension, the unpermitted fence extension location, and the, only, retaining wall at the back of that, fence. The green arrow shows, where public utility easement, starts. And, based on the plot plan, the fence was lying, when the home was built, it was lying right on top of the community, which is abided by our municipal code. So, the engineering department, reiterated this back to, Mr. Lowen and, Mr. Lowen, conveyed to city staff, they need to seek for legal advice from an attorney. On January 10th, 2025, the city of Hollister, attorney Jennifer Thompson and Mary Lerner met with Mr. Lowen's attorney, Jason Letter, regarding the engineering decision based on the city's municipal code. During the meeting, the applicant's counsel requested an exemption from the city engineer relying on clause from the city's municipal code, table 1716-1, which includes an exception to allow a fence in height of 6 feet within a 10-foot setback on the side street corner of the lot. However, this requires the city engineer to make the evaluation to see if the fence is still going to be in compliance with the easements and rights of way. The city engineer Mark Fowler was unable to grant the exception to this case of the PUE within lot 91 within tract 341 is 10 feet. Granting an exception in this case within the 10-foot setback would be considered not consistent with the established easement, hence the city engineer's inability to provide the exception. For instance, if the PUE was a 6-foot wide PUE, the city engineer would have the authority to grant the exception to allow the fence up to the 6-foot PUE. Since the PUE is 10 feet at Carriage Road, the city engineer does not have the authority to provide such exception, which deems the cost for municipal code 1716-1 as unapplicable. On January 15, 2025, Mr. Lowen provided a letter to the city engineer indicating the inability to provide an exception through the administrative approval process. The letter to Mr. Lowen provided instructions on how to proceed with requesting an appeal process as shown in section 1724-140 of the city's municipal code. On January 29, 2025, the applicant filed a timely appeal to the city's engineer. Its city engineer's determination regarding the fence location and interpretation of the city's municipal code. The applicant's argument points were they were claiming the original fence was actually installed incorrectly and was actually placed 4.5 feet into the 10-foot public utility easement, as shown in attachment A of the staff report. It's not in the slides, I apologize, but however, there is simply this no clear evidence that the builder installed the fence incorrectly. In order to capture the modest amount of additional approximately 4 feet of unusable space from the side yard setback area, the Lowen's extended the fence closer to the edge of the sidewalk or this property line. The Lowen's also replaced the fence with nicer, sturdier, substantial, more expensive fence. That's what the applicant was claiming. That's their viewing point. However, the fence material is actually not acceptable per the city's municipal code. The city's municipal code calls for a wooden fence, and their fence is composed of metal components. So that's another
feature that does not abide by city discipline. Another arguing point presented by, Mr. Lowen, was the arguing point that, that the city's interpretation of, the city engineer's ability to provide this exception, they were claiming, the city engineer does have the authority, to provide the exception. However, the clause consistent with the easements and rights of ways, the key words within that table, which this certain scenario is not applicable to the certain scenario. So the fact that it's a 10-foot PUE makes that that section of the municipal code as unapplicable. So the city engineer can't grant that exception. And so another arguing point by the Mr. Rowan was that the subdivision currently has sound walls that are placed right at the back of the wall. However, those sound walls are maintained by the city, and they were actually installed as part of the subdivision agreements and conditions to prevent sound pollution to the neighborhood. So those were established as part of the subdivision requirements. So that is also applicable. And so those are just additional pictures of the sound wall within the subdivision. So in terms of CEQA, of course, the location of the fencing is exempt. It doesn't have any potential for causing an effect to the environment. In conclusion, the staff has reviewed the applicant's request for the placement of the rear yard fence at 1301 Carriage Road within the Maribel subdivision. And it has determined that we have determined that it could create potential hazards in terms of visibility around the corner, and it is also inconsistent with a community dedicated to the subdivision properties. While city records indicate that there's no city-owned utilities within the easement, other utility providers may have utility systems located in the easement. However, the city cannot make determinations on behalf of other utility purveyors. The city's residential fence guidelines were established to protect utility easements in residential subdivisions. Public utility easements are essential for any part of any type of development, and are established to provide utility providers with access to maintain and expand their systems as regulated by the California Public Utility Commission. The applicant also makes reference to the fence extension application 21005, which is also attached to the staff report, where the city allowed the exception for a fence in a public utility easement at 1460 Waterville Lane, which is also within that subdivision. However, that exception was granted under different direction of the engineering department. And that exception was limited to a 6-foot setback. Mr. Lowen proceeded to also extend his property fence without a permit. And the exception that was granted, I believe in 2021, the applicant actually submitted the application prior to this doing the work. So, like I said, and stated beforehand, the exception was under different leadership, and it doesn't justify a reason to, violate the municipal code exception pertaining to fence extensions. So just because somebody else did it doesn't make it right. The applicant also argues the sound wall, like I was elaborating earlier. However, like I said, the sound wall was established as part of the subdivision. Improvement agreements. The applicant has appealed this request and asked the planning commission to overturn the city determination and allow a residential plan fence and a pony wall. A pony retaining wall on the westmost property line of lot 91 of the Maribel subdivision in accordance with the city's notice of 17-16-050. Under the provisions of section 1724-140, the planning commission may affirm its part or reverse the action decisions or determination that is the subject of appeal. Staff recommends the planning commission deny the appeal of the city staff's determination on the municipal code section 17-16-050 regarding the location of the fence and direct the applicant to revise their fence extension application to relocate the fence back to the original placement as shown in figure 2 of the plot plan. Before you are planning commission's options. So like I previously stated, it was one, to adopt a resolution denying an appeal 2025-1 based on the findings contained in the draft resolution. Two, adopt a resolution approving the appeal and reversing the determination of staff based on findings established by the planning commission. Or three, continue the item and request additional information or clarification from staff. Which staff's recommendation is to reinforce the integrity of section 17-16-050, which pertains to fence extensions. And to remove this will basically enable to remove the unpermitted concrete retaining wall, and outdoor watershed and fence within established public utility easement, removing vertical obstructions from the community. This will allow utility providers to exercise their legal right to access the infrastructure to perform necessary repairs or perform future subdivision upgrades.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the commission?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about when the appeals when you all have approved appeals or exemptions or fences like this? And I know you referenced the one that was referenced a couple of years ago, and you said it was under different leadership.
Correct.
So I'm just, trying to understand, should it be based on different leadership or should it be based on other things or,
So we made our decisions based on the municipal code. So perhaps the previous leadership wasn't referencing the municipal code as it's supposed to. And so perhaps that's why that exception got granted. But under current leadership, we're abiding by we're trying to reinforce our decisions based off the municipal code.
okay, and then I want to understand what the safety hazard is, if any, what are there any complaints of neighbors? And if not, I understand if not as well.
Absolutely. So the fence does pose it does conflict with what we call visibility set triangle, which is like when you're turning the corner. It does provide issues with traffic or vehicles entering the intersection or trying to see incoming traffic entering the intersection. So it is a potential traffic hazard in terms of visibility. Also, another big one is, like I said, it doesn't allow direct access to utility purveyors to access your systems. Purveyors such as telecommunications or even PG&E to access the utilities, or even if they want to expand in the future, let's say they want to roll out with a fiber network. Obviously, the fence would be in the way that we wouldn't have access to,
Well, that's interesting you say that because in your report, you said there wasn't an issue.
city-owned.
City-owned utility, that
Yeah.
was not an issue.
No, I said there was no city-owned utility in the public utility. Yeah. However, the city does not have the right to speak on behalf of utility providers. They could have, they could potentially have systems. Yeah,
We have to be any, potentially,
yeah, and it's any,
anywhere in the city, right?
yeah, correct.
But not
most-
this house.
Yeah, correct. Most houses do have the easements like side or the front.
And I do think that there's a letter here that where it states the applicant said if in the future or whenever that is needed, they are more than willing to abide by and have accessibility and even pay. Right?
Correct, but this poses another issue. So if we grant an exception to this case, everybody else is gonna want this exception. So, what about previous owners that we did deny and we did have to move their?
What about, what,
Yeah.
what do you
I'm-
think
I'm-
might happen?
Well, in terms of fairness,
What would happen? So let's say,
Uh,
let's go with that scenario. Well, what do you think would happen?
I mean. There's a reason why public utilities were established.
I'm trying to understand what your scenario though, like, so let's say. If, we did grant it, you're saying other people would, so
Other people would want to violate the municipal code.
they would want to violate.
Correct. He did it. I wanted it.
The only difference between this situation and the one at 1460 Waterville, that application was owner at the time, or
No, so,
Waterville also not within the same.
so. Waterwheel Lane, they submitted the application before that.
Is that the only difference?
Correct.
All the other variables, the city has the authority to have the acceptance or we can.
No, so the only difference, one of the only differences was the leadership that the decisions were being based off of. Currently, we're trying to, uphold the municipal code. And so our decisions are based off of this, we're trying to do the right thing. We're not trying to base our decisions off of thin air. So it could perhaps say it slip through the cracks, or, I can't speak on behalf of the leadership decisions.
I understand that, it's just that there should be some predictability to how most of the projects apply. And right now, all the input for the same, and the outcome is different. The only difference here is that this happened with this and with the exception.
Correct.
At any time, but the city and the other. Like, again, I'm just trying to understand if 1460 Waterville, is there was 10 feet or within the 6 feet? Because earlier you mentioned that the city owned the link for allowed sections, if it's 6 feet or less.
Correct, so, the TV along, Waterwheel Lane was also 10 feet. However, their setback, they proposed a 6 foot half setback. Correct,
All the way to.
correct, and we also applied before doing the work. In this case, they did the work, and then we got caught by the enforcement. And then for the enforcement followed up, had that submitted.
Since the new leadership took over, was there any exception?
No,
None.
no, not that.
Just add something. So the city staff is required to abide by the code. They're not really allowed to make exceptions at the staff level. And so to the extent that that happened in the past, it really wasn't supposed to happen. And so current staff is really trying to abide by the code. However, the planning commission does have discretion, so where staff is required to follow the code as written, which is what they've done. The planning commission, the purpose of the appeal is the planning commission does have some discretion to make exceptions if the circumstances vary. So that's why we're here.
And when did the new leadership take over?
I would say, early, or early 2022.
Okay, because in that neighborhood, there's a couple.
Correct, and code enforcement has been treating these spaces the same, so they have been, issuing code compliance cases.
Actually, yeah, so,
And so we're trying to set a precedence for,
okay, so you can go back and fix what was an exception, or we go back and apply the code. Because if we have something across the board for everybody, then we really know what we're complaining. But if I come in and say, okay, well, this person, that person, all have exception, why not me?
What I would recommend is that anytime that the staff, to the extent that they're allowed to grant an exception, or the planning commission grants an exception, we make findings, which are, statements of the reason why we made that decision. And typically those findings are going to distinguish why this situation is different from any of the others.
I have a couple of questions. When you mentioned the safety hazard of the view. I'm looking at exhibit C, and I'm trying to understand that better, and I don't know that I would agree or understand that that's a safety hazard. I don't know if you could show me.
so,
It's on the corner of the.
yes,
You're
So-
blocking my view when I'm coming out.
North Gonzalez is the primary, it's a primary, it's still a local road, but it's one of the primary entrances to the subdivision. So if you stop at the front of the house, or if there's any little areas, you could potentially have issues in the oncoming cars. These subdivisions were already constructed with, visibility side issues, alone, even without a fence, so a fence in place just makes it worse.
And you mentioned the sounding board.
Yes, so the sound walls within the subdivision, they are actually placed right at the back of the walk. However, those are implemented to prevent sound pollution.
What's the controversy with that? What's the issue?
So the applicant was claiming, why is the sound wall at the back of the walk? As opposed to why can't I have my fence like the sound wall? But the sound wall was established as part of the subdivision agreement. Yeah. And
So I know the applicant, you offered a compromise to the applicant previously. By going like 5 feet back instead of 10. Was that a compromise offered last time, right?
I didn't offer that to the applicant, if that's what you're asking on the.
No, not you, but I mean the city.
Yeah, the city, however. They were proposing a setback of 6.5 feet, which. I mean, it's quite significant. It's quite the significant difference as opposed to this case where it's literally been happening.
So the city is not offering that anymore?
No, like I said, we're trying to uphold the municipal.
One other question. How often do we review the municipal code, and what would be the process to amend it if possible? If needed?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I can speak to the process, it's not particularly difficult, it's done by the city council and it's done in 2 meetings, so basically, usually what happens is either city council requests an amendment or staff identifies something that needs to change and they propose an amendment. They bring it to the city council for approval, and they consider it, and then it comes back to a second meeting where they adopt it, and it's noticed in the, local newspapers, so people can come out and discuss, but essentially it takes 2 council to change the ordinance.
I'm wondering, I'm just throwing that out, like. Then. Want to have this conversation with you all about. If there's a reason why people are building several fences like this. What is that about, right? This is our community. Is there a reason? Do we have to amend our municipal code? I'm just getting that, really possible. Like, no, what's that about? Cause I also don't wanna be a city where we're punitive and we're just like, no, cause it says so, it said no. Well, why are we saying that, doesn't make sense? I don't know.
So public utility easements are typically established by registers. And so,
But
it
it's
is, it's a general rule of thumb to keep those public utility easements clear, just for maintenance purposes.
I have a question for legal. So, based on the applicant's lawyer's letter that I read earlier, said they were willing to make the necessary costs if there was something to do with it. Say, it's not underground broadband that we corrected or something. What happens if the applicant can't afford the changes? What happens in that instance? Do they just do the work and then just realize it?
What I would recommend is that if you chose to take that route, that you would record something on the property that basically requires the applicant to move the fence or pay for whatever needs to happen if there needs to be utility work. And then if they don't make a payment, that it would be placed as a lien on the property, so that if the property is sold at some point, it would be reimbursed. Or I guess whichever utility company needed to be reimbursed.
Is the applicant the owner or the builder?
So we get step under. And so, as shown by the picture, it's not only a fence, it's a retaining wall.
Yeah.
And the barn.
And what happens if the property is sold for another place?
That was gonna be my follow-up to the, so we did use our discretion on this, that automatically place it on the owner.
Yeah, Yeah, anything that's recorded, the purpose is to notify the next owner. So it would run, essentially what we call run with the owner, or like, it's on, no matter who owns it.
So, as shown by the retaining wall, there's electrical fence involved. I haven't seen the fence on the private side, but I have seen it on the public side.
See, my concern is that, okay, this leadership wanna force vote. What if the next leadership? do it? Now what? So now I'm gonna be really upset if I was the owner. That he didn't accept mine, but now the new leadership say that's fine. So this is really stupid. I'm kind of debating my mind about this. This is not a straightforward answer.
Right, and you mentioned there are various other fences that with political.
Exactly, I've seen it.
In that subdivision,
Yeah,
That are right now pending.
correct.
well, asking for the same thing?
Correct.
Oh,
I have a really good question. So, they mentioned that they like $20,000 for this event, that's all money. Probably professional did it. Who usually submits the application for it?
The odor.
Not
Yeah.
the contractor.
Sometimes every now and then, but typically one.
And you did mention the materials being metal and which it looks really nice.
Yeah.
And so, in the municipal code, is that also detailed like the
Correct.
material, the same municipal code?
Correct, yeah, this section of the minutes. That is reference.
See, that would be something that I would want us to consider.
So, yeah, that was gonna keep it out for that. Is that a citywide code or is that just for that subdivision?
Yes, it's citywide, it's listed in.
Take it out.
Well, it does pose, like, for instance, if we have a metal fence requirements, it potentially it could be more, devastating to the injuries or whatever. To whoever is impacted.
Whoever ran into your fence.
That or whoever's walking near the sidewalk too. I mean, the bike riders or, people walking their dogs or whatever, but. Yeah, it's considered a more rigid object rather than a wood. So. Could be classified. as it is.
Just a gentle reminder to the commission when you're speaking, if you wouldn't mind making sure your mics are on and that you're close enough so we can ensure that people online can hear you as well. Thank you.
I wanted to get a point of clarification. So you said in 2021, they submitted a permit before the work was done? Or was that for the?
No, that was for for the water wheel. That was when that application was approved back in 2022.
But even though this applicant, like, can you refer to them as an applicant, or
Yeah.
this homeowner,
Yeah,
didn't submit an application, they have complied with like completing the appeal and all this process, right?
yes, but they did the work without doing the permits. The other case, they did their due diligence and, I for a permit, did their information before spending like $20,000 on a fence. To ensure that it's going to get approved.
If they would submit an application under this leadership with the.
Yeah, they wouldn't have.
Been required permission to provide this.
No, so yeah, there would have been no appeal, simply because, or actually, would they be, like, let's say you submit a application before they did the work, you would still be entitled to the appeal, right?
Yeah, their application is denied.
Yeah,
And then they come before us for.
correct, but the 20,000 or whatever amount we spent with it. Okay.
Well, can we go back? I mean, this is a typical term, I guess. Can we go back and force our code on all the exceptions we have before or not?
Not if there's been a documented exception, so if, the city engineer said this one's okay. We can look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Can we see the recommendations?
Yeah.
Is there any further questions for staff from the commission? We will open now for a public hearing at 6:46 p.m. Staff, do we have a presentation from the Imperial on this item? Yes, well, this meeting.
So yes, the hearing will be coming up this week.
I'm a homeowner at 1381 Paris Road, so I bought it, I want to say about 3 years ago. I did provide aerial units from where the fence is extended, it was extended about 4 feet 4 inches. That's how I know about all these little details, is I'm an electrician, and the director go ahead, the erection company do the fencing, the cement, the concrete, that's what the plan is to take charge of the cost in the future, no problem. I have already done a lot of to be able to have that ability. And like I said, it was 4 feet 4 inches. I did make the honest mistake of not getting an application. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. That is my mistake. Once I was informed that I was unlawfully unpermitted in right away, I spoke with a bunch of people that had me in the right direction, filled it out, paid all the necessary fees, and then we are here in this position. But if you do look at the plot plan, I believe there's something there, I have this presentation. It says that it's a 10-foot easement, but the corner in the house is 10 feet, 94 inches from the corner. And if I were to push it, or if it was built at 10 feet back, fence would be there was a fence of 4 feet 4 inches, which I extended, so that they would do to make sense. That's what I would like to hopefully get approved for. And like I said, I'm a new electrician, so I know what to look for. And all Christie boxes, manholes, and utilities that are actually in the front yard. So nothing's a shoulder.
That's the applicant.
I'm curious about what you think of the viewing in terms of safety and traffic.
I guess not what actually, let's bring it up. I don't know, I've been living there for 3 years. There's from the sidewalk to the street, I believe it's like 11 feet, there's landscaping, there's the trees and bushes and stuff like that. I don't see any restricted route whatsoever, whether you're all the way to the stop sign or even 3 feet beyond stop sign. That landscaping actually lets you get a perfect view in all directions.
And you said that when you purchased that home, that's wasn't on the video, like, right, so.
It's 4 feet 4 inches. If you look at one of the pictures there, my neighbors in the back, there's actually a model home that we're all the first one. The fence is completely in line, so you can see that I popped mine out about 4 feet. So if you look at their fence line, just follow it down, the next thing, that's exactly.
So already,
It's
But the existing. What would have been the existing fence was already.
correct. The original, you would say, built by the homeowner, you know, like I bought it, I bought a piece of dirt, they built it.
For question. Consider it all.
so you're the original owner, this property.
Correct.
And when you received that house for the developer, where was it at?
4 feet 4 inches from the side.
In the sidewalk?
And I provided a couple pictures on it, this presentation, but they are my appeal and on the information that they presented to you guys.
Yeah, it seems like it.
But I'll show you how you send it, there's my neighbor's block fence. Offers for it, the materials like stated on the metal. It's actually a metal overlay. If you actually dig out the dirt a little bit, you'll see the word all cemented 3-4 feet into the dirt. The metal just makes it actually a little more modern, but it's really a wooden box. Frame with a metal hollow tubing over it, and then the water faucet. So it's really what's making its input on the floor. It's still wooden.
And the frame is wood, like this,
The little black trim is metal.
that's the only now.
That's the only.
So like using the scenario if a car were to go through it,
There's 98% wood.
explain, I'm like, this big thing is metal, no, it's not. Like that.
Heavy with it.
Yeah.
Any further questions? For us?
Staff, we have any additional?
We don't have any speaker cards and let me check online. No speakers online. I do want to state for the record that staff did receive a written comment from Mr. Leon's attorney yesterday that has been distributed to the dais as well as made available in the lobby. And staff will also be posting it online tomorrow to make sure that it's a part of the packet as well.
The public hearing is now closed. Commissioners, if you have any additional questions, comments? And
Only ask staff again, or,
Yes, certainly you can ask that.
could you confirm if the fence was received by the owner and the developer, not in the previous one? Is that something that you would have in city records?
So the plot plan they provided, is a city record, that's what, it essentially, when we build a house, that's what the house should be, built to. And so, typically, we, like, if we're trying to look in the past, we try to rely on, like, Google Street View. Or, other sources, that have been, surveyed, but, and so. This subdivision technically doesn't have, and there's no proof that, the fence, was actually built not for qualifying. The applicant, they're, you know, would say a good sir.
You know, maybe that's how we did by developer, and it wasn't taught during an inspection,
Well, what I'm saying is the applicant, never submitted, like proof that the fence, the original fence extension, that it was pushed into the when he bought the house. He provided, like, aerial images, but, I mean, who knows when those were taken, as far as like what we have as proof of how the house was built is a lot. Clearly it's stamped by, an engineer and, signed up by the city. That's. Correct, so, yeah. Also, to add to this, the only retaining wall, I checked with their building official, since it is a retaining wall and it does have electrical, there was no building permits ever available for it.
What do you think about? What we explained about the fence material being like 90% wood?
I mean, like I said, we try to kind of uphold the municipal code, so if they have metal components, it's still metal.
So no fence in our city is allowed to have metal components.
Correct. Within the section of the municipal codes, residential guidelines.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think for a motion, I definitely feel like, use the thinking earlier, like, there's still questions I think that I have. I'm not comfortable doing number one, but, what do you all think? I kind of am maybe for trying to understand, because I think it's unfair, right? Although I understand municipal code, but which I also think needs to be reviewed. So I don't know, to anybody else, I don't know. So I wonder if maybe continuing the item and requesting kind of doing a little more research and. So I put that motion out. Unless we want to discuss.
So I just want to clarify, the
Yeah.
motion is to table the item.
The motion is to continue this item and request additional information or clarification. Go ahead with that.
Is that a suitable?
It is, it's one of the options. I believe staff would want specific information that you're looking for, because I think they've presented you with all the information that they have.
And we have two motions.
Well, I could take mine back though.
Certainly, yeah, you could rescind your.
I could rescind mine.
Yeah.
So I'll rescind mine because I want to hear what yours is.
I think, I would go for number one. Because I feel that, the city has to go with the code sooner or later. I mean, yes, it's unfortunate that the old leadership did have an exception, but moving forward, if you want to keep things going great for everybody and across the board, we need to have to take a stand and say, okay, enough, and start from today, not do this.
But they're not straight for everybody.
Yes, they are based on the new leadership. I mean, based on now, they are using the codes for everybody across the board.
My concern is that by we don't know what option we want, which are precedents. At that moment, reality, just out of it. It's a very unfortunate situation. I do feel for the homeowner. I read through your lawyer's proposal. There should have been some type of code enforcement when the developer developed the property. In my instance, and this is either here or there, but when I bought my property, I bought it with the anticipation that we're gonna have RV parking on the side, because it's big enough RV parking. But the city put a utility box right where, right before I'm for the RV, so now I can't use that. But it's neither here nor there, it's out the back. But if I were to put in a permit to do so, I guess I'd be notified that. So this is a really hard one.
It is.
It is because I mean, it's done after the fact. I think the permit was pulled. The applicant would have had a chance to make concessions or decisions on its own to go with city reputation.
The developers have to go, or is there any inspection done on the final build for the property?
Yes, and typically the inspection is based off the plot.
And so this should have been fine. If the fence wasn't.
Well, there's no evidence that the fence was installed 4.5 feet from the house.
That's not an item of the final walkthrough.
Yes, that is. However, like, I know the applicant was stating that the fence would be technically in their living room, but the plot plan shows it right above it, right next to the house, and technically to the, or applicant should have never had a side yard fence.
You would have known how to sign it.
It's, yeah, correct, side yard.
I mean, I saw the picture, but they would be, the side yard, but it wouldn't be accessible from the back.
Correct. And they would have a backyard. But the fact that the extending the fence outwards prevents that side yard. If you have a
In the picture that I saw, there was no way to walk from your backyard to the side yard. I gave they would build it there and stuff like that.
Can you switch to the plot plan?
And saying that there's no evidence that that's true, there's also no evidence that it is. I just want us to be clear, right? Like,
our evidence that we use is plot plan.
but that doesn't mean that that's what happened.
Correct, but there's, how do we know that it was?
How do we know?
So just to clarify if I can, so a plot plan is issued and when the home itself is being finalized, when the building inspector is going out, that is what they're going off of. So that would be the initial record. Yes, the fence would have been set at this initial point. The point on which it becomes, when did the fence get moved? There would not have been a building inspector at that time because it had already been inspected for the original plot plan approval. Does that make sense?
So originally the plot was, I mean, it was signed off on and.
Yes.
Sure.
So the plan set that we have, the inspector goes out, the building inspector goes out and says, this matches this. So,
So do we get that record for the, not only this property, but the model behind it? To see where the record shows that the fence was built and signed off.
yes, in theory, yes, you could ask to get that from the building department.
But the inspector has to approve based on the code. So they will not pass the ours. Unless it's approved by them.
Unless they made a mistake or they were like the three rights.
No, as far as I'm concerned, they don't make exceptions to
Exactly.
plot plan. You have to approve what is, otherwise it will go back. And it wouldn't, so it would go back to revision.
So the inspector will not pass if the wall has been.
That's the part that's not letting up. That was the intention, and that's what we probably should have happened. But if he's the original owner, and when we purchased the home, and the picture provided with us at that time shows that it's not at the 10-foot line, then that means that it was approved, not on the 10-foot line, it was signed off to the inspection. So I was just thinking, just to make full record and see if what's going that out, if it confirms it or not. I think it'll be what, like,
Which would be a recommendation of the reading.
that's a clear answer. Only to, here's working with, right, we make mistakes. And it doesn't make, like, when you look at the picture, why would you expect the fence to be the corner of the house? Right, so maybe just not look, if you're not looking for it. So, and then the picture again, I'm doubtful that this plot plan was honored in the final report.
So let's say we do find a mistake, right? Let's say it's happening.
we're still trying to set a precedence, right? But it seems like the developer, they were allowed to build a monument and this one, the fence were aligned, right? If this fence was a continuation of that house, that was also, if they had a similar theory on their property, it's already like, there's 2 homes now from the get go that was aligned to the property.
It's like whole new.
Now we're passing the responsibility to the homeowners that they could have incorporated on it, and I think it was just finding the true source of this issue. That's not your fault, not the city's fault, it's just trying to make sure that we're getting to the source of it. And I know that they would then move the line, or we'll move to where it's at right now, but I'm just trying to figure out the original.
So. If the builder did incorrectly build this, or the owner, we would go after the builder.
How, the process is this. Right, this would be the process, and going along with. I didn't even think about that, potentially, and you're saying there's other applicants, or other homeowners who have code enforcement. Violations,
Correct.
it could be, right, it could be this scenario too, that it's not their fault, right, not your fault, not our fault, but. But I think that's something worth us looking into, and I would hate for us to be going after homeowners. When it was not, it wasn't their fault to begin with, and. That's a good. Thing for us to continue. Oh, and respecting, like, right, if understanding municipal code, but then. If this neighborhood has this issue, maybe there's something there that. We need to look at.
So in that case, are we saying that inspector made an exception at that time?
Maybe not intentionally, just. Again, they're always.
Because the inspector is supposed to do based on the code, so those are going to be good.
I agree.
So you're assuming there was an exception though.
I mean, if this picture is truly at when they first got the piece to the property, it shows that wasn't for that line.
And do we have that paperwork?
That's what we're asking.
The final time on.
That's what we
That the
want.
final-
That's what we want to ask for.
The inspector signed off and they have the blueprint where it shows.
Well, it's not gonna be a blueprint, I believe it's under
Probably not gonna show, because he's not gonna have pictures, right?
right.
Right, so it's really just gonna
be
be-
a permit part.
Yeah, it's the permit guy, he's just gonna sign off on it
So
and saying, yes, this is done, this is according to the code, and I'm done.
If I can, sorry to interrupt, if I can help. When the inspectors go out to do all of their inspections, they're signing what's called a job card. They have a set of blueprints. And then on the back of the job card, they're signing off individual things. There's no pictures involved. There's no. There could be a note, but it is just signatures on a job card, and then you get the final signature sign off. And that's usually when the fences are reviewed. So it's just a signature. So in this case where we have a plot plan that shows legally where the fence is supposed to be located at, the inspector should note that the fence is in that location, and then if the job card gets signed off, that is what the inspector is doing. They're signing off that you followed all the code, right? If the fence moved later that night, or it moved 2 days later, we most likely would never know.
That's what I'm saying.
If it's hard to, there's so many scenarios that could go into play here. So it could have been moved, right? We don't have eyes on the ground staring at every house, taking a picture of everything. It is really hard to tell. But when the plot plan legally shows where the fence is supposed to go, that is where the fence is supposed to go. Where the plot plan shows where your driveway is, that is where your driveway is supposed to go. And that's what the inspectors are checking. But there's no picture at the end.
Assuming the inspector at the time, the fence was on the right place and they signed off according to the code that everything was okay. Now, like you said, the same night, somebody could have known.
Yeah.
But based on the inspector follows the code and sign off on it. So that's what I'm kind of on. Saying that based on that time, the fence wasn't the right place.
So my question for the two commissioners are asking. Say it was If it wasn't at that point, I was saying it's okay for the fence to be moved, to exist in place now. Yes.
I change it. That would make me lean more towards, that, because it's not, it doesn't. It would actually also validate the applicants.
Moving it toward the corner.
Yeah, well,
I
that was
don't,
their.
I don't know that that's placed that point.
That's it. The fence was placed at 4.5 and we decided to make the applications at 4.5.
But there's
So
no,
the discussion would be easier.
Right,
Yeah.
they're-
But the fence has been extended all the way to the back of the lot, which wasn't said.
but the thing is, there's no direct evidence, there's no direct evidence that the fence was installed at 4.5 feet. It was not provided by that.
So based on the plot, where it was supposed to be built.
It was supposed to be built as is, right above it, right where the green arrow is showing.
The same, is the same behind it, the same house behind it?
It should be abutted to the fence.
Exactly aligned by the fence that you get the house around, right?
That was the plan, and the original fence was the one that Disney had back then.
So,
Which is what we.
so in exhibit C, it should have butted the fence. Where it shows those on there.
No, you're referring to the plot plan, right?
No,
No.
it was exhibit C.
Yeah, so the one on the left.
So we should have followed that same path, but it should have abutted to the corner house. So there would have been no segment
No sign.
if it was built for one. But there's no clear evidence that it was built at the corner.
So his yard would have been less than his neighbor. His side, well,
Correct.
There's not a good sign that it's. It depends on the confidence.
it's not. It's in the-
Yeah, that's why that's kind of, it wouldn't slide right off the end of the. Right. So they.
And if you take a look at exhibit A, you can kind of see the difference where the new concrete and the old concrete. So it looks like. It appears to me based on off of the differences in concrete, the fence was installed for the plot plan at one point. Based on the concrete coverage is there.
So maybe I'm misunderstanding the words, because it was, that's kind of what I'm saying. But that, the fact that I can see the sidewalk at the corner of the house shows that the fence wasn't right of it and stuff. There was still a little bit of walkway between the side yard and the backyard, and then the lot line, it's clearly like hitting the corner.
No, you can kind of see it. Like if you turn to the plot line.
Actually, he's saying because it's a corner house, you have less.
You can see it.
Yeah,
The green arrow,
Yeah, so.
I'm not seeing that depicted in the picture.
So.
It's where you have it up at the ceiling.
Okay, so right at the corner of the house, right by the 91, to the right, you can kind of see there's that little edge. And then it goes up and abuts to the rear neighbor. But the way that the plot plan was approved, there would have been no fence absolutely for the side yard.
so the fence would have been on that dotted line.
Correct. No, so the fence is the little X. Is the line type of the little X, and so the dashed line is actually the PUE. So
Okay.
that's why it was, the plot plan was approved Because the fence is on the PUD, it's a maximum amount it could go out. So that line right there is a PUD, and then above is the line type with a little X is the fence.
All right, and there would be no fence on the side.
Correct. It would just abut to the corner of the house.
Is what it should have looked like.
Based on the code, there would
Based-
be no
yeah,
side.
correct, based on the approved.
But
Yeah.
because he's the first time homeowner, and he says that's not right.
I think it'll be worth also getting the model home. All kind, you can take all that stuff right there and see the current things aligned together. Like,
So the model homes, it wouldn't show like the surrounding, it would only show like the floor plan of the house, if that makes sense. And so the floor plan,
have this version, something along this one. Side,
no, so the model homes don't show the site plan, it only shows like the actual.
how would an inspector or worry if that's able to do that?
Well, the bottom.
This is the little that we're looking for, you know.
Yes,
And I'm asking that we probably fill that and then make note that the fence is on that limit.
yes, that is available, we did, evaluate it when we were doing this, and so it did show like a tank of.
Because I also wonder for more information if all the corner houses have this similar thing. That they all don't have a sidewalk. Curious.
So we could pull the, sorry to interrupt, we could pull the map for this development. But in every development, there will be some parcels that for whatever reason do have, for lack of a better word, a funky lot line. And so they either have a weird situation where the gate has to be on the side that you would never want it on because there's an angle on one side. Or in this case where he could potentially have a side yard fence, but what would be the point? You're just a little triangle. So we do have situations where there is an awkward fence line based on how they fit in some of the parcels. It just kind of is the way it is.
So the wood fence on the plot plan is actually indicated on the legend below. It's in green, it's enclosed in green, and that's what the arrow is pointing to. So it's that line type, as you can see, it abuts right to the, from rear neighbor's fence up to the corner of that. So that's what we got. Yes, yes.
It's set here for the model house and people living in the country. It could have been moved off the way, but it doesn't. There's a bump out or maybe there's a qualified fence, that's me. Doesn't seem like it's, so. Maybe confirmation that for everything like for the neighborhood is.
So if I'm aware, code enforcement had also regarding on after that.
What's concerning me? I feel that there's a couple concerns here. It's like, are all these houses potentially in violation without their fault? That's one concern. I
Did
don't
that
know.
neighbor indicate that they did a modification or they received it?
I have not had contact with them really,
Or they didn't?
yes.
And so I think like, as a consumer, it's worth checking into, right, for sure, and then I think the other, I know we're planning commission, not lifestyle, but I just wonder like, if, you know, people are doing these fences to have, you know, a better well-being in their home, isn't that what we want in the city, right? And just kind of thinking about putting that out there. Like, what are we talking about and what is the issue and how do we remedy this? But first, I think we definitely need more, I feel like we need more information. I know that I can't make a motion until this one is figured out, right?
I don't think there's a motion on the table.
Oh, there's not.
There
Okay.
is,
Okay, there-
it's his.
yeah,
That's his.
oh, okay, my apologies. So until we figure this out, right?
Big staff.
Well, that's
Doing-
Oh, you say after.
So yeah, so you could act on that motion, see what happens.
There was the second.
Oh, did you call for a second?
I-
Oh, well, that, yeah, I guess that's what I meant.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor. For option number one. Is there a second? So not hearing a second. Do I withdraw the motion?
The motion fails for lack of a second.
So is there a secondary motion?
So question. Because that motion is done, then do we have to do another motion or what happens?
If you don't do another motion, there's no action on this item, right? So the applicant is just. Vote. So I would recommend,
So it would still be a violation of the code. Whoever enforced it. Is still has to see whatever they see.
I think he would have to be, he's entitled to a decision on the appeal. So if the planning commission doesn't make a decision. it would- I would look into it some more, but my thought would be to move them appeal to the city council, but he can appeal whatever decision you make tonight to the city council.
So. I'd like a recommendation from this commission to just move forward. So that we have action, if we're gonna continue the item. Right. Questions for the staff, so that we can make a decision on this, we see this, so. I think we make, it sounds like we're gonna go.
Yeah, I'll go back to my original, yes, I want to make a motion to continue the item and request additional information. For clarification, I think,
Yes.
we've offered a couple of questions already and, we'll go back and find out, right? Do we have to repeat what we?
Yes, please,
The first one is getting the final sign off from inspectors on property, on the applicant property and the property recommended. The second, I want you to confirm is like, is actually the rear neighbor indicate that they're the ones who need it. I don't know, that's the model.
okay, you're wanting to know if they moved it, or?
Does anybody else have further clarification for documents?
Yeah, I want to know how many, this is a code enforcement already put some violations on others. How many others in that neighborhood? And at least, not to give too much work, but at least one more comparison of a corner lot. In that neighborhood.
And I have a suggestion for maybe updating on this bill to allow the city to make perception of the country, not just pedestrian country. Would that be something that or?
Yeah, so, I would leave it separate from this item, but at the end of the meeting, there's an opportunity for the planning commission to make reports, and so at that time, you could get consensus from, commission from that, for that item, and ultimately, yeah, I would come to you first, and then go to the city council with your recommendation.
We do allow for exceptions, but in the events when the match should be. So it's like I previously stated, if the community gets, 60 wide that. Like that, and then. Okay.
The further questions or clarification on staff in the next report. Okay, so I'll call for a vote on. Option number 3. There's a motion in a second. Let's do a roll call vote.
Commissioner, Mizuni,
No.
Commissioner, Carla de Torres,
Yes.
Commissioner, Damon Perez,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren,
Yes.
motion carries 3-1.
And for point of clarification, is there an estimated time of when you would see this again? You. Yes. But I think it's meeting or.
It's not required, but. I'll leave that to. I'll leave it to you. Hours that we.
Okay, it should be very.
Thank you.
And that's just for the purpose, I don't want to leave you in the boat. Thank you, and I'm sorry you had to go through this, but it's through the process that we're doing. Okay, moving on to item 6.3. Rest very specific time limit, site architectural review. 2022-13, and conditional use permit, and 22-5 for the project recovery, and that was staff report.
Hello, I'm very excited to finally bring this project to you, which has been in the works for quite a while. It's a Bright Future Recovery Sober Living Facility.
No. I don't know what's happening.
The facility is located at 1000 Fairview Road. You can see it with the arrow on the screen. It is surrounded by the West of Fairview development. The subdivision to the south that you can see is KB. It is currently under construction, almost complete. And then to the north will be the next phase of West of Fairview. The phase numbers keep changing, but right now it's called phase 3. And that is in for grading and improvement plan, so it will be under construction. This project involves 3 different application types. There is a specific plan amendment to allow the construction of the 3 buildings that they wish to build, as well as their development standards. There's a site and architectural review, which is required for the new buildings, landscaping, fencing, and site improvements, and a conditional use permit for the source. For the specific plan amendment, as I mentioned, it's in the West Fairview area. A specific plan was adopted for all of West Fairview. At the time, this property, as well as 2 smaller other properties, were included within the plan area to ensure that if the sites were ever developed, that they would comply with the West Fairview specific plan goals and policies, and to ensure that they fit in well with that, with the surrounding area. In this case, for this project, while West of Fairview really anticipated the development of mostly single family homes, we do a 100 unit affordable project as well as park area. And we do have the cluster lots at the KB development. It never anticipated anything other than standard residential. So for this project, it needs a specific plan amendment to tailor that lot to what they need to use it for. And so staff has drafted a specific plan amendment that allows them to have buildings and development standards and allows for future work if they needed to accommodate their needs. For the site layout, the site is an existing site. There is an existing house up there. If you've driven down West Fairview Road, if you blink, you will miss this property. There is the sound wall for KB, and there is a narrow entrance right now, a lot of landscaping, so you will have to really struggle to see the existing house, but there is one there. It's located at the rear of the property. There, as I mentioned, is the existing driveway off of West Fairview. What they are doing to the site is really revamping it. Right now, it is just the house and the driveway, but they are adding parking. They are adding a new building closer to the street that will be their administration building, and that will be used for meetings and offices and therapy. They are also adding on the right side of the plan, in that kind of light orange color, they're adding a new guest house to provide additional beds. And then the existing house will continue to be used as a residential facility. Site improvements include landscaping, fencing, a new pool, new basketball court, and some on-site amenities. Now, because of the grade of that property, the speed on Fairview and the location of it, you most likely will never see any of the buildings, but just to give you an example of what they look like. This is the front of the administration building. That's the building located closest to Fairview Road. It is 1 story. It has a variety of materials. They have massing, brakes, and articulation throughout. Unfortunately, again, you're probably not going to see most of it, you'll see it. This is the new residential building, which will be used only to house people. And again, interior to the site, you probably will see a little bit of it above the fence line, property line, interior to the site. The project also includes a conditional use permit. There is a sober living facility, as I briefly mentioned, that operates on site. They wish to expand the number of people to 22. And the site is over 1 acre in size, and with the new buildings, there's more than adequate space to accommodate them. It's important to note that the state of California has determined that this type of facility is a residential use, so it's not a commercial use, so it is allowed in residential zoning districts. The residents will be living on site, and they will not have cars. They will live in the house in the guest house, and services are provided on site. The traffic analysis was prepared and it identified several enhancements to the site that were recommended due to the number of residents, they didn't have cars, but to accommodate the employees. And within that analysis, as I mentioned, it did include some enhancements, and those are already incorporated into the budget plans. Again, if someone were to subdivide this site, there could be 6 residential dwellings on it. So this is actually a little bit smaller than what you would see if 6 homes were built on the site. So it is compatible with what was ever anticipated. This project was reviewed under the California Environmental Quality Act. And because this is within a specific plan area, there was an EIR. There is the 1998 West of Fairview specific plan EIR, and then the 2007 supplemental EIR. Because this was included in the specific plan area, it was included in the project that was anticipated at that time. The project did include a minor modification to what was discussed in the EIR. The EIR mentioned that the driveway needed to be moved from Fairview to interior to West of Fairview, so it should wind up with maybe fuchsia. If the site was ever constructed, the applicant requested that it stay on Fairview where it is now to allow for the plan that they accommodated, but because it was studied in the EIR, we needed to double check to make sure that it was safe. So as I mentioned, that traffic analysis was prepared. They incorporated the recommended modifications to ensure safety of entering and exiting the site. And then again, because there was a minor modification and we had to study this project, staff prepared what is called an addendum to the EIR, which is allowed when there are no new impacts or environmental impacts associated with the project, but one needed to be prepared for frame. So that was done, and that is included in the
So sorry.
I already said the EIR, I know, so just skip it over.
Okay.
So, in summary, this site is 1 acre in size and it is physically suitable for this project. The proposed use of the site is a sober living facility and it will provide support and services that can be used by the residents of the city and provide a needed service. Although not visible from Fairview Road, the new buildings are attractively designed. They include a variety of colors and materials. They're well articulated. They have roof and massing brakes, and they'll be an attractive addition to the city. And EIR addendum was prepared and it determined that the project would not result in any environmental impacts. And so in conclusion, we do have 4 options. This project is a little different because it includes a specific plan amendment, which is a council action. The planning commission would be making a recommendation to the city council tonight. Because neither the conditional use permit nor the SNA could be approved without the approval of the specific plan. So option number one is recommending city council approval of the single addendum, the specific plan amendment, the site architecture review, and the conditional use permit. And then you also have option number two, which would allow you to make any changes or changes to the conditions of approval. You could deny the recommendation, it will still go to council, or you could continue the hearing and find someone. Staff was recommending that.
Thank you. Really, questions from the commission?
I'm curious, you said, in the beginning, this is taking a long time. Yes. Tell me a little bit about
Not a good project, it moves fast, and the applicant is here, she can tell you more. We've had some. We had to do legal work, we had to do the traffic analysis, we've had many plan submittals, so that's taken us quite.
Is that because of-
And then the last meeting was canceled.
Oh, okay. Is that because of the planning commission asking?
No,
Oh.
this is.
And then I have another, I think it's important to have these services. I'm just curious, is this a paid private fee facility, or is it a Medi-Cal paid facility? Is it?
So, for the state of California, any facility, whether it is through state funded, grant monies, private insurance, et cetera, they are all considered the same thing. We have very little discretion in that.
I'm just curious, like, who can we, refer, or who can we say, you can go to this facility because their services, or is it like you have to pay for it? That's what I'm
So,
curious.
for this particular one, sure you can answer that. Should choose that.
Okay, then I'll ask.
Yeah, I can answer that really quickly.
You have to come in.
And actually, it would be better if she speaks after the public. Sorry, close comment.
Or open the public hearing.
Or you have questions for Sal?
Was the entrance, or the original study wanted to be off like one of the roads in the internal development? Or now it's been on 30, was that because of the neighboring development, or was it the preference of that?
So West of Fairview is a very long project. It's been going on since 1993. So within that EIR, and remember, times do change, but EIRs don't change, they do live on forever. So when they did the EIR for the West of Fairview specific plan, that EIR mentions with not too much information that they wanted the driveway from this property able to go into the site. There was no plan that specifically showed how it was supposed to occur. It was anticipated that we would figure it out tonight. Since, however, the construction has started, there's a sound wall around the property. So it blocks access. There is a grade change. Moving the driveway to internal would be very difficult and very costly. The driveway exists on Fairview now. It is currently used now. There's a sober living facility operating there. But because the EIR had a comment within it that said the driveway should be moved inside, I can't just say, yeah, no problem. I have to follow CEQA, and CEQA tells me I have to study it. And then just for the safety purposes, I can't just say, sounds good to me. I have to have an expert say, yes, Eric, it sounds good, or no, what a terrible idea, because it could come back and say what a terrible. And then the applicant would have had to really modify it. So it sounds like it just was kind of like in this case, it was almost like a check the box type of situation. In some situations, it's not that case. But for Cherie and this project, it didn't make sense to actually force them to move it internal because the cost expenditure to do so would have been less. And the traffic analysis backed us up on that. But then the addendum has to keep the record of why we made that change.
So. Thank you, we will open public hearing at 7:38, staff, we have any public comments.
We don't have any speaker cards, but the applicant is in the audience if you would like to have them speak, if you are answering questions.
Hi, I'm Sherry Ashley. I'm the founder and owner of Right Future Recovery.
Well, thank you for doing that work. I'm a social worker, so I know the importance of that. And my question was more of, is this available to everyone in our community, or is it a private made? How do people access it?
Yeah, so we've been open for 10 years, and I'm pleased to say that we now take local San Diego County Medical for the past year. So we can take Medical for
And it's good to hear that we've been operating already. So this, tell us a little bit about what this potential approval could mean to the facility.
So we currently have 12 clients at a time, and it's, as Erica was saying, it's just ran out of the house right now, so it's a little bit tight. And we do have an entire acre, so it would be really nice just to kind of space it out and have individual therapy rooms, a group room. Right now, it's just kind of all in one place, or the living room, and then it would just be additional beds that we can add there. The nice thing is it is residential, so they don't drive, and it would just really improve, and the plans are beautiful. So it really just gives them a really comfortable environment while they're going through the process.
How many more? Patients that you have, how many more patients would you ever use the facility?
It would be adding an additional 10.
Is that if they're gonna increase too, or
Yeah, it will increase.
so that the capacity on staff and everything?
Well, the capacity of clients would be 12, and staff, it would just really vary. We'd be adding a couple more night shift techs as well, a couple more counselors. So I don't have an exact number, but we would,
There is.
depending on how many clients you have at a time.
And this is a voluntary program.
It is.
It is a. Do you serve like part-time patients as well?
We do occasionally have clients that come in that may be having legal issues, and that's something that our team specializes in, is working closely with their probation officer or parole to ensure that they're getting the care that they need. We are dealing with substance abuse. So we factor that in when they're having a hard day, and we have amazing professionals on site that are able to work with them through that. So just depending on what the legal situation is, we're able to accommodate.
How many new positions will be created?
By increasing 10, we'd probably be increasing by about 6 to 8 staff.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Any further questions for? Thank you.
Thank you.
I will now close public hearing at 7:42. This is our time.
Thank you, Marcia. I'd like to make a motion of this already. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the resolution recommending city council approval of a CEQA addendum, the civic plan amendment, site and architectural review and conditional use permit.
And we have a motion on the floor.
I second that.
The motion is second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you for doing that work. Everyone phase 2.
Item 6.5.
Cool.
So. 6.5.
That's like.
You want the next one?
Yeah, we ready? No. MSU. Wait, I don't know, that's right. Apparently it's- Ah, did I do that? Okay, sorry. Evergreen Phase 2 is a little bit new for us. It's a tentative map and plan development. I'll go over that in a second. Evergreen Phase 2 is if you follow that blue arrow to that kind of shaded in area. It is within the Chapel Road Master Plan area. There is an existing house there on a very large piece of property. If we look to the right of that shape, that area, you see that kind of like tan area. That's KB at Everglen. It is currently under construction. There are model homes and a few homes up now, but they are currently in construction.
Not working still.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Phase 2 is intended to now be, included within Everglen Phase 1. The property has now decided to subdivide. And so they're planning to subdivide the existing lot into 7 lots. So there will be 6 new houses, and they will be incorporated into the KB development. So with this project, there is a plan development, and I believe this is our first plan development since the rules changed. And so with the plan development now, there are things that need to be done. It now requires a rezone. So action by the council again, and it requires a public benefit. So for this particular plan development, the existing property is zoned single-family residential performance overlay. And this overlay allows for small lot developments, but keeps the standard single-family residential development standards. So because the PC overlay allows lots to be as small as 2,500 square feet, most developments cannot meet the traditional setbacks, and so they request a plan development. Everyone did the same thing, they have reduced setbacks. The good news for Everglen Phase 2 is that they are within the Chapel Road Master Plan, which included a variety of public benefits for the entire master plan area, such as a linear park, and then within Everglen Phase 1 and Phase 2, there is a small. So they do have a public. So just to show you the location within Phase 1, you can see the darker lined homes. And then the existing roadways which are constructed, and then the Everglen homes kind of in a lighter line type around them. So they will fit in with the development, and they will have the same design as those homes. Their proposed development standards are similar to Everglen Phase 1. There is one exception. So again, the lots are smaller, which is allowed under the performance overlay. They have the same lot coverage as standard single family, but they are requesting a 5-foot side yard setback, which we typically see in home development. They're requesting a 15-foot setback to the house and a 20-foot setback to the garage. So that also be a little bit closer to the street than would otherwise happen. But for this property, again, as I'll show you again, but there is the kind of to fit it in, some of the lot lines are a little. I can't think about it. They do have some reduced setbacks, so it's been set up so that they can have the corner where it is, and then the setback gets larger till it meets the standards. And then for air conditioners, they're again, because the 5-foot setback, they're requesting a 5-foot setback. And then the density is 8 dwelling units per acre, which falls within the R1's standards, which is 1 to 8. So this is their proposed tentative map, and as you can see, the existing house is in a lighter line type with access to North Chapel Road. There are 2 houses that will have access to North Chapel Road. The park is right to the north of them, and then the remaining 4 units will be accessed off of Summer Morning, which is internal to Everglen. Again, you can see there's 2 in that kind of. If you took them both together, they're kind of a square, but those 2 properties have those, you can see it where the side edge of the rear
is very close to the property line and then significantly expands, and again, it's to fit them in, it's just due to the regular lot. With regards to CEQA, this project was included within the Chapel Road Master Plan, which means they are in development of that parcel as well as the rest of Chapel Road. Was reviewed in the 2019 Chapel Road Master Plan EIR. The project is consistent with that EIR, and all mitigation measures that are included with that in that EIR will apply to this project, so they will need to comply with that. Because it's within that EIR and there's no additional impacts or changes, no further reviews. So in conclusion, the proposed plan development is located on a small infill site, will be within the Everglen development, part of the larger Chapel Road Master Plan area. The proposed development standards are appropriate for the lots in which it is located, and it is consistent with Everglen Phase 1. The proposed design of the homes is also consistent with the design of homes in Phase 1, and therefore it will seamlessly integrate into the overall Everglen development once it is. Again, because this project requires action by the council, which is the plan development, which is new. The tentative map relies on the plan development, so both require council action together. So the planning commission will be making a recommendation once again. And so your options for tonight are to recommend approval of the tentative map and plan development rezone. You could make some changes to the conditions of approval if you chose to do so. You could deny the project, or you can continue through that and more information. And staff is once again recommending.
Thank you again for your report. Do you have any questions for the commission?
One question, are these houses in size similar to other houses from Phase 1?
Yes, it's exactly the same plan from Phase 1, now in Phase 2.
And how big are these houses?
They vary in size. It's hard because they vary in size, and some within Everglen have an attached EDU, but none of these will. But I believe they're. I believe they're about 2,300 to 2,800 square feet.
This side, huh?
And
Or the market rate.
they are market rate, but there is there are ADUs on some of the lot which do tend to run higher.
So maybe you could account for maybe the city's requirement for the market rate.
Maybe, for market rate homes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we can include ADUs within your reportings to the city.
None of these,
And accessory dwelling.
you mentioned none of these would have that one.
These will not, no. So all the accessory dwelling units are in Phase 1. These lots are too small. They wouldn't be able to. They're not too, they're not too small due to the configuration of the lots and where they're trying to put them on. It would be almost impossible to put the ADUs how they have in this.
And currently, what I'm there's no sidewalks that property.
So now that they are in for a project, they will have to do full frontage improvements on top of it. So sidewalk, from there. What?
The 20-foot setback, is that to a sidewalk or a sidewalk?
It's to your property line. So setbacks, it's important to note that in any project, and this is the case for every city, your property line is in different locations. So some cities might have, or projects might have a sidewalk outside of your property line, and it is responsibility of the city to take care of the sidewalk. Some will have it inside of your property line, so you are required to maintain your own side. So it is always measured to the property line, and the plot plans show where the property lines are. Those are not finalized until final.
Is it the sidewalk within the property line? Maybe not.
If you go back and try to zoom in and see, I don't know if the sidewalks. So that dotted line is an easement, so the property line is most likely at the back side. But again, it's not found.
Why wasn't this, part of the first phase one?
So it was discussed at the time, and for whatever reason, maybe the property owner wasn't ready to sell. I'm sure that the rest of Everland going under construction maybe sparked the desire to, would be my guess, but unfortunately the applicant couldn't make it tonight, but I know it was discussed. At one point it was included, and then the property owner didn't want to do it. So it was.
So. I'm just curious, I'm just gonna throw out. At an option, if, how many houses are in that development?
And Everland.
Approximately.
I was trying to say,
Just approximately.
I think it's 92, but Amber could tell me I can be completely.
92, so just, I have a point to why I'm asking, it's a significant number. And how many parks?
To for Chapel Road Master Plan, there is the park at Everland. There is the green space at the highway, and so can you go back to the first slide, remember, or not, yeah, the first slide, which was the aerial,
You get fined 25.
yeah.
More.
So you see how 25 swings up? So, Everland has the park, and then you see, you can kind of see the property to the north is like a dark gray, and then the property above that is what is brown. So swinging along 25 for those two properties down to Everland is park space.
One park space?
It's one continuous park area.
Okay.
So all of this, so the need for parks, the location of the parks and the public amenities was established by the city council.
Right.
And that is in effect as part of the Chapel Road Master.
Well, I'm just gonna say this, like, I don't think we need more houses, first of all. I know this was a development already in the works, but I would like the developer to consider the need for not just park space, but for indoor recreation space. When you have 90-something homes, and whether how it is, outdoor is great, green space is great, but can we have a consideration for an indoor recreation center at this potential place?
So for Chapel Road, the park and recreation land has been designated. So for the rest of the projects,
They won't consider.
it has already been determined by council or needs to be. There is no requirement for single family residential for indoor park space. Park requirements for residential developments are handed down to us by the state, and we follow them. And so they are within our code. There is the requirement to either pay an impact fee or build parks, and that's the Quimby Act, so we're required to follow it. But again, there is no requirement for single family residential to build an indoor.
And I understand that, and I'm here representing our community, and I know that a need our community has is an indoor recreation space. And so if there was any way to, ask for that, for especially maybe something home, and I'm just thinking, like, it feels like, okay, they got that extra piece of land, let's build more houses, like, can we be more thoughtful about the extra piece of land and what we need, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, so certainly for future developments, it's something we can consider. The hard one with this, Everland's already been approved. That's under
That's why
construction.
I had.
So
put
we're
that-
looking at a 6-lot subdivision in essence.
Is in the text.
Yeah, and of course, as different projects come along, we can have those.
And I would just add that with development impact fees, the city council and the city established what those fees will be used for, and there is a parks fee, I think it's parks and recreation, so at a certain point, city council approves of parks and master plan, and that plan may have indoor and recreation based on it, but development impact fees are used for. So this is all, established before a developer proposed development.
I have a question regarding lot 7, it's gonna be the abilities to the house, are they gonna do anything to the property to tie it in?
So so engineering has a condition in there requiring full frontage improvements on Chapel Road, which then also helps because they'll tie everything in. Or hopefully eventually, we have the sidewalk that comes along with all.
Was there consideration of a school in this development? I thought I heard talk at one point years ago, I love the school board and they talked about potential.
No, it wasn't. The Chapel Road master plan is started a fairly long time ago. So it was reviewed several times by council before it was ultimately adopted in its present form, but in no form did I was.
And so to the question of, because it is along year 25, just, thinking of safety, because they all drive. That's fast moving, highway. What are the safety considerations there?
So on Highway 25, and the project on that brown area actually was approved, it might be close to expiring now, but there was a project approved for it. So part of the purpose of an EIR, environmental impact report, is to review many aspects, one of which is noise, the other which is safety. So for 25, there's burning and other enhancements, as well as measures for safety to make sure that there's sound attenuation to those homes. And that there is safety, so someone doesn't decide to go dirty in place. So it was incorporated into the EIR, and then I know we haven't, that gray area, there's been no project yet, we've had interest, but no one's actually applied. But for the gray area, it was significantly reviewed as part of the review process, and I know there were specific conditions of approval related to it, and it was incorporated into the design as well, to make sure that nothing requirements.
I think we passed that project. I believe on the first one, the brown area, the property that's considered, they said that there was some.
Is there a way to try to get under maybe more photos? Like the market rate, because these are small lots, they're gonna squeeze in a 300 square foot home, and they have plenty of 12 to 30. Is there any way to put in like, regulation about that? These are really suitable for more public.
So we do have an inclusionary ordinance that does require a certain percentage of homes and all new developments now. Everyone was approved before it took effect, and so was the brown colored one. So they weren't required to comply with the affordable component, but, and again, this one is too small, but there is an affordable component of 20% affordability for all new residential developments, and that's our inclusionary. So this project is too small, there's not, so Evergreen Phase 2 is not required to comply because they don't meet the number of units, I think it's 10 to require compliance. But Evergreen Phase 1 was approved before the inclusionary ordinance took effect. Evergreen Phase 1 was approved in 2022.
But to piggyback on his question, even though it's not required, should we ask the next one of our recommendations for approval?
You can ask. I actually think that happened at a meeting not too long ago where the commission, maybe Chair Malone and members of the commission asked the applicant to consider adding additional affordable homes, but I mean, essentially, a developer is only required to do what's in the code, right? So.
And I think the applicant said we consider.
Yeah, it's not.
Any further questions for staff? Hearing none. We move on to public hearing. Give it a brief minute. So I do have any public comments.
We have no speaker cards and no comments online, and then just to answer the question of how many units have been proposed in Evergreen One. The 10 was not, but I was able to find shows 82 units as an existing residential.
Thank you, and we'll close public hearing at 8:04 p.m. Is there a motion to approve this item? Or the second?
Motion to move on from the one. Not the release of the city council of Bureau or plan to hold and control. And thank you now.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Oh. No. Okay, procedurally, I wanted to have the piece we just talked about. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I did ask.
I'll withdraw my.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a withdrawal of the motion. Is there entertaining the second?
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the resolution recommending approval of the planned redevelopment zone with conditions modified. And the condition being that we ask for increase.
Well, you wouldn't modify the conditions because the conditions tell the applicant what they have to do.
Okay,
And so it really a recommendation would be more just a request that staff talk to them and there's really no. It's not like.
okay. So we get one or two.
It's one.
It's one and then just, okay.
So tell the applicant your request.
Okay.
And just for point of clarification, this is us recommending the city council.
They're recommended to the city council. Okay, and then, I'm just, can I ask something else? If it was, if we denied the proposed project, it still goes to the city council. So it goes to the recommendation.
So they can actually reject our.
They can reject your recommendation of approval and they can reject your recommendation of denial. Okay, so I was in my, because it's not the right one.
I think so.
Go back to.
Yeah.
So I do a motion for number one, adopt resolution for number city council approval. Of the plan development visit.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
But yes, I want them to ask if we can have more work in.
So to just another point of clarification. Based off of the ordinance, that would just require the outdoor house for that six.
They don't meet the requirement, they don't have the total, so the way it's crafted is as a smaller type.
So it'd be a discretion. Even though it's the same building.
It's entirely different.
All right, so the motion passed. Yep, okay, so the motion passed 4-0. Moving on to item 6.5. We have a staff report.
Tonight we have a zoning ordinance amendment. We haven't had one in quite a while, except for inclusionary. This one is related to specialized funds. So to give you a bit of background, the city does review the zoning ordinance from time to time and will come with requests for minor modifications. The city is undergoing an overhaul of the zoning ordinance that Chairman Belong was on when we first started. We've since paused because of the general plan, the inclusionary ordinance and a few other things. We will be bringing that back again. Starting soon. But in the meantime, the city recently received a request to operate the specialized training school in the M1. And upon reviewing that request, we found that the municipal code does not allow those types of schools. And so after thinking about it, in the industrial zoning district,
you typically do find specialized training schools for things such as how to repair autos, or how to assemble components, or how do you install something as part of a construction job? And those types of schools typically do locate within an industrial zoning district because they need higher ceilings, or they need a large open floor plan space to conduct their training. So after looking through that, staff determined that yes, that is a use that actually should be hopefully within the light industrial zoning district and would be beneficial and provide more educational and training opportunities. So in order to do so, we need to add a new category to the light industrial zoning district, to their table of permitted uses. And so what staff is proposing to include is schools, vocational, and trade. We are recommending that require a conditional use permit, and the reason being so is that sometimes these schools like to locate things on the outside, which can be unsightly. Parking, especially in Hollister in the industrial zoning district, does tend to be a problem, and then we'll need to have adequate parking, and so we can check those things as part of the conditional use permit. And in some cases, if they needed to do anything outside or anything else that could be annoying to their neighbors, we want to check it at that time and maybe limit the use or hours of operation or where they could do it. So because schools, vocational and trade is a new use type, we had to add a new definition to the definition section of the code. And so basically what we are encouraging or allowing in the light industrial would be specialized training related to licensing, certificates that you might need, really for fields related to construction, repairs, woodworking, furniture making, cabinet making, or specific types of manufacturing. So if it was approved, those types of schools would be allowed. I'm not gonna read this because it's so long, but the existing definition was quite lengthy, and so is the new one, but we had to break apart the two different types of schools to really make it clear what the difference is between the two, and then they'll be allowed in various sections. Basically, specialized education is supposed to mean things like having a seminar or teaching a finance class or a computer class. Those are schools where you typically have more students in a classroom sitting in smaller spaces, they have different parking demand, they have different needs. So again, with that, we had to amend the commercial land use table to clear up everything, because unfortunately there was some errors and there was some but there was some conflicting requirements. So we're trying to clean it up. So now we have all these different types of schools, a lot of them commercial, but again, vocational trade, that should be in the industrial. They're larger scale. They have they could have potential impacts on neighbors, so they wouldn't be allowed in commission zoning. Whereas colleges and universities or primary school or secondary school would do that. Again, just to clean it all up, we had to amend both the primary definition and the secondary definition to really clarify what those two different schools are. So staff has proposed an amendment to those definitions. And CEQA is not required for this project because while we are amending the zoning ordinance, there is no direct physical change to land, and any project that ever comes in is required for their own environmental impacts to the city and to the surrounding. The proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance will allow vocational and trade schools in the light industrial zoning district, which will provide a place for schools of this type to operate where they're currently not allowed to operate. And staff feels that this will allow for further job training and opportunities for this. And again, because this is a zoning ordinance amendment, it does require a recommendation by each council. Council will make the ultimate or the final decision. And you have your standard 4 options. Number 1 would be to recommend approval of the amendments. Number two would be if you wanted to amend any of them. Number three is if you wanted to deny them, but it will still go to council. And number four would be if you have, any additional information. Exactly.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for staff?
I do, is there any demand for this week right now, you have one operate there?
So right now, we did have one request, and when they came in with the request, that's when we realized it wasn't enough. So there is the potential for one. They haven't, applied for a permit or come in with direct plans, but they have indicated that they would like to have facilities.
Is this, well, it could be like nursing program, like,
No, so that's different. So in the definitions, it distinctly separates those out. So in the light industrial, you don't want commercial type uses. So a nursing program would be more of a commercial or professional office type use. Whereas in the light industrial, there are chemicals, there's noise, it's a different type of environment. So for the light industrial and for the schools that we're talking about, they are compatible. Because you don't want someone learning how to manufacture cabinetry next to a retail store. It's very loud and there's dust and it can be quite obnoxious to the surrounding area and it'll impact retail uses. But in the industrial area, we have larger buildings, we want to separate out, they need space. That is where a use like that would want to go to teach those types of skills. And unfortunately, right now in the city, the code just doesn't allow, period.
I see the sixth grade is included in both categories, primary and secondary. Is that because of recent changes or just the?
That's because it does include private schools and some private schools will go up to 6 in the private, elementary school up to 6, but then, in some it's goes higher. So it allows for that flexibility that they could, if there was a private elementary school and wanted to go through 6th grade, that they could.
Does any of the programs that could potentially be offered there at school like the SCP at high school? Or the spirit of education, but one of this some overlap with some of the.
It would be, I don't have a project in front of me, so I don't know now. And this is most likely for adults learning a career path or training. And then if ever someone came in that wanted to have, where they wanted to allow the school to have students there as well, that could be included as part of the commission as well. But that would be up to them and the school of that.
No.
I just had a question, so if this is gonna be publication, that's good. Is there anything that we can do to ensure that it's gonna be a modified program, like it's gonna be recognized as a state recognized program? Like that in your program? There's private programs out there and decide.
I would think that's outside of the planning commission's purview and would be more related to city, like business license or state licensing. But I'm not familiar with what type of licensing go through, but it's outside of, I would think, planning.
I would agree. The hard thing with limiting it is, I could be an artisan chair maker. And are you saying I can teach people how to be artisan chair makers? You wouldn't be. It's a weird area, but I would say in the terms of it's just a use, not requiring a license type situation, allows more flexibility.
If we're setting up a facility for our residents, or the school that has been. I don't see that.
Again, all uses will require a conditional use permit. It's a lot of speculation till we actually get someone. And if we found a problem in the law said we would require it, I just have never seen that as a requirement. I'm like racking my brain trying to think of all the definitions for schools I've seen, and I've never seen anything. Because the same would be, we have the, like, personal schools, and there's finance schools, and all sorts of things, and you don't require them to.
But those type of schools are being allowed in commercial.
Yeah.
So as far as vocational schools, they're looking more towards trainings. For automotive or something.
We can still teach educational skills. So nursing, computers, what you're doing.
But trades and automotive and auto body, that would have to be traded. Time and industrial.
Yes, it's not appropriate in the commercial whatsoever. Again, you're talking about, there are impacts associated with those types of businesses. And it is inappropriate to have it in a shopping center or commercial area where they could really impact the surrounding. So you would want them in a larger building on a larger site, removed from most of it.
My concern with the question is that I wanted to open students to that certification, and I have no clue on how to teach that. But people looking at program and passing getting certificate and stuff. Whereas if it is a state approved apprenticeship program. That was my concern, but I guess we had no clue.
This came along through an applicant interest in operating here. Are there examples in other cities? Probably gonna be similar to what we're doing.
Yes, most cities do allow schools and they're like industrial zones. And they allow, again, schools that you wouldn't want in other areas of the city. So, and most require conditional use permit, again, this is one which was in passing. Have I ever seen cities with, schools? Yes, I've seen woodworking where they teach large scale woodworking like cabinetry or, larger, to teach them how to be an artisan. So larger scale like table and chairs and real furniture making. So they have that skill. I've seen those. In a city I haven't worked for, I haven't seen HVAC or automotive repair schools, but I do know they exist. I have seen them myself, so they are.
Anybody like to try? Hearing none, I will move on to public hearing 21. Start with public comments.
We have no speaker cards and I see no hands raised online.
Those are that only one. Is there a motion?
Want to make a motion to adopt the resolution recommending city council approval of the zoning ordinance amendment to chapter 1710 industrial manufacturing zoning. So the last by high school.
And there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Second. There are motion on the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. We will move on to item number 7.1. Determine the funds vacation disposal of wellness outing. Maybe we have a staff report.
Chair Long, this item was prepared by the city attorney's office, and I have my colleague Sarah Salvini online who's going to present the item. She did let me know by text message that she's having a little bit of trouble hearing the commissioner, so if you do have a comment or question for her, if you could just speak straight into it.
Good evening, Commission. Should I share my screen to share the presentation or do you all?
Yes.
I should share?
Yes, please, sorry.
Okay.
Let's know if you have any trouble, Sarah.
All right, are you all able to see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. All right. I apologize, one moment. Here we go. All right, this item concerns an approximate 10-foot by 80-foot strip of land owned by the city of Hollister. That's part of what was historically designated Weller Alley. The issue before the commission tonight is whether the vacation or the abandonment of the property as a street, or in this case, an alley, and the disposal of the property is consistent with the city's general plan, and that these actions do not constitute a project under CEQA. If the commission does make this finding, a report will be forwarded to the City of Hollister City Council, who will then determine whether to vacate and sell the property. This slide shows the location of the property at issue and the outline of what was once the full Weller Alley. The property at issue is the small, narrow rectangle in between 140 San Benito Street and 102 San Benito Street. You can see here that they are outlined in red. The yellow line shows the former location of the rest of the historic Weller Alley. This is what the property looks like today from San Benito Street. It's a vacant lot with Vista Park Hill in the background. This is a drawing showing the original intended use of Weller Alley that was meant to connect San Benito Street to Monterey Street. As you saw in the previous slides, and as you can see here, Monterey Street was never extended to parallel San Benito Street, where it would have connected with Weller Alley. Additionally, the location of Vista Park Hill makes it highly unlikely that Weller Alley would ever be used to connect San Benito Street to any other street. Here is a recorded parcel map from 1979 that, as you can see in the lower right corner, highlighted in yellow, indicates that the alley was abandoned and has not been used since 1979. Additionally, here, you can see that over the years, the rest of the property located within that original Weller Alley designated area has been incorporated into the surrounding private property. So the 10-foot by 80-foot strip that we're talking about tonight is all that remains in city ownership. Given this history, we believe that vacating the property as a street and disposing of it, so selling it, transferring it into private ownership, is appropriate because it has not been used and likely cannot be used as an alley, given the physical hill in the background and the fact that the rest of the alley is owned in private ownership. Therefore, it's no longer needed by the public and is appropriate to be abandoned as a street. We believe that the vacation and disposal of the property complies with the general plan because it doesn't impede the city's ability to meet its general plan goals, nor is the use or development of this 10-foot by 80-foot strip of land contemplated as a means for the city to reach its goals. Finally, the vacation and transfer or disposal of the property does not constitute a project under CEQA because it would not result in the direct physical change or reasonably foreseeable indirect physical change to the environment, nor at this time is the commission issuing a lease, permit, license, certificate, or other entitlement. So with that very short presentation, the options for the commission tonight are to adopt a resolution that vacating the property and disposing of it are not a project under CEQA, that the vacation and disposal of the property conforms with the city's general plan, and that you all would like to convey a report to the city council with your decision. Your second option is to adopt a resolution approving the street vacation and disposal with modified conditions. You can deny the proposed vacation and disposal, or you can continue and ask for more information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions from the commission?
What's the most likely that it's gonna be absorbed into one of the nearby lots? It's only 10 feet wide, right?
Did you hear that, Sarah?
No, I'm sorry. It's really difficult to hear you all.
He asked what the likelihood is of the 10 by 80 foot piece of alley being absorbed by an adjoining parcel.
By the neighboring parcel?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's very likely this would be a decision that the city council will have in front of it if you all do decide to find that this is consistent with the general plan. One of their options is to find that it cannot be developed unless it is absorbed into one of the neighboring properties. We also were approached by the owner of both 140 San Benito and 102 San Benito, who requested for the city to look at this and initiated this process.
Questions? The income earned from the sale of the property, would that be something for the city to?
The city council will determine how much, if anything, to charge. There is a possibility that they would only require that the property owner pay for example, legal fees, the fee to survey the lot, the fees associated with abandoning it, if it's not of any use to the city.
Since there's interest from both parties, how would we determine this?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, but both 140 and 102 are owned by the same person, is that right?
Correct.
So this is.
Any further questions?
No.
Well, then, is there a motion on the floor?
We just opened it up for public comment.
Okay. We'll open it up for public comment at 8:32.
We've received no speaker cards and no hands are raised online.
Those public comment at 8:32. And is there a motion on the
Motion to adopt a resolution that the vacation and disposal of the property is not a project under CEQA. That the vacation and disposal of the property is in conformance with the city of Falls Church Employee General Plan, and that the city planning commission will convey a report of this determination to the city council of the city of Falls.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion in a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, 4-0, motion carries. And we will move on to item 8.1, planning commissioner reports. Any reports from the commission, then I'll start from the left.
Yeah, I just want to make their recommendation for the update on this approach to allow the city to make evaluate exceptions up to 10 feet. It's right now they're limited to 6 feet according to the where they can interpret that. So maybe it's up to 10 feet so they can kind of catch us, but it's not in practice.
Do we have to, I want to say that as a motion?
No, this would just be direction to staff to bring it back, at which time the commission would vote on it, but we would ask that there be consensus that be brought back, so if at least 3 of you want it brought back, then staff will do that. So looks like there's 3 of them.
Any further discussion regarding the item? Any further report?
I wanted to add to that one, if I can, about the requirements, the municipal code requirements with metal and wood and could it be a combined?
I think so, it seems like it just be a review of the fence ordinance or some parts of the fence ordinance.
Commissioner McGinn? Any report?
Nothing.
I just wanted to basically express maybe some concern. The item that was brought forth tonight. Am I allowed to discuss it? Or,
And I mean, I wouldn't, you don't want to discuss the merits of any project because that opportunity has passed, but if you. And you really can't discuss anything that you can make statements, so if they're more having to do with like the process or procedure, you're welcome. Like, it's hard to say when I don't look at this.
well, just stop me if I
Okay.
get stopped. By setting a precedence, is there legal ramifications to the city by us doing that?
There can be. So, for example, if an issue of any kind made its way all the way to the court, they might look at that as an indicator that the property owner, saw it happen around him or didn't see something happen, and so that could potentially be impactful. What we typically advise staff is that if just because something's done wrong in the past doesn't mean that you need to keep doing it wrong, and in fact, you should start doing it right. Because it's better to follow the code and do things correctly as long as you can, and not be concerned about what false precedent might have been established in the past, if that makes sense. So it's hard, it's gonna be situation specific in almost all cases, but I guess that would be the biggest impact I think would there.
And I guess my concern is if we start making this a common practice, we're gonna just be bombarded with situation after situation. And I think there's a reason before the code, and that's why the code's in place and needs to be followed. And there's a process of things that needs to be followed as well. But we're just gonna, continuously have hearings, because people are just gonna take it in their hands and do what they want, and then we'll have to deliberate this way. So, I just wanted to make those comments and get some clarification. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just, if I could add one more thing, and the code is written as clearly as possible, but it will never, no matter how well written, cover every situation. And so that's one reason that people are given the opportunity to appeal, also because they're entitled to due process. And so I would say that although it's important to follow the code and not encourage people to just appeal any staff decision, there are times when it's appropriate, and also the planning commission does have more discretion than staff. And so there are times when you could decide something different than staff, as long as you're able to say why. If you have findings and that distinguish that particular situation from the others, it would be appropriate to make this decision. But I understand what you're saying. You don't want necessarily to encourage anyone who doesn't like a staff decision to appeal it.
Thank you. And we'll move, unless there's any further reports. We'll move on to the planning division reports.
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay, there's one last thing to do. I'm gonna get a motion to adjourn.
Yes, so
Yeah, second, third, and that is 8:38 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
thank you.